Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's FileMaker webinar. My name's Mike Crook. I'm the Marketing Manager here for FileMaker in the UK, and I have with me Kieran Saunders, our Solutions Consultant.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So Kieran's going to be showing you all how to easily extend your custom apps to the web using FileMaker Web Direct today. Before he gets started in a few moments, I'd just like to say if you have any questions during the course of the session, feel free to ask them using the questions panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer as many of those as we can towards the end. That's all you'll hear from me until that questions section at the end. So without any further ado, I shall hand over to Kieran to get us started.
Thanks, Mike, and good afternoon, everyone. So we'll be looking at extending your custom app to the web today using the FileMaker platform. So just to give you an overview, I'm sure you're aware, but just to give you an overview quickly of the platform and what we'll be concentrating on today. So the top level from left to right then, it's, we've got FileMaker Go there on the left. That's our iOS app, our Apple iPad and iPhone app. That's free to download, but then you would pay under a concurrency pack to come into your server to start using it for your business use. We've got FileMaker Pro and Pro Advanced in the middle there. They are the tools that you can build, manage, and actually use as users on the desktop, on the Mac and the PC to build and like I say, use your custom app. And on the right-hand side, we have FileMaker Web Direct, which is a product, but actually comes from the server. So it's your FileMaker solution, your FileMaker custom app in the browser. So that comes from the server, which is down the bottom there, and that's a software server. We don't sell hardware. That's a piece of software that you would install again on a Windows or a Mac server, either in your business, in your network, or within one of our FileMaker partners' hosting centers to have that come out to the internet. So that's the product line, but we'll be looking very much at using FileMaker Pro to build the solution and to test it, but then looking at that solution and the use case for this solution would be in a browser, so we'll be using WebDirect. So what is WebDirect? What does it look like? Well, if you can see on the left-hand side there, we've got a solution that we've built, a custom app that we've built in FileMaker Pro. And on the right-hand side is that being used within a browser. So you can see it's we design for that platform, we design for the browser, and therefore it looks absolutely wonderful within that browser. But you're using the same skills within FileMaker Pro that you've learned and used to build custom apps for the desktop and for the iOS platform. You can now use those skills to build yourself a custom web app as well. So what do you get? What's the advantages? Well, you get desktop style interaction. The whole sort of real aim for the team was to bring a web app that has all of the things that you expect within a desktop application. You have themes to make it beautiful, styles to help you sort of manage that sort of look and feel, charts, drop and dragging files into the solution directly from a desktop or somewhere else, interaction with sort of files like images or Word files, PDFs, and we can do that directly into the browser, and importing and exporting of data as well. So we can, really have a very interactive web application. The other advantage, and one of the things that is not strictly something that you wouldn't expect on a browser, which is in instant updates, it's much more sort of a wow factor when you see it on an iPad. When you change it in FileMaker Go, you change it in FileMaker Pro, it changes on the server, and therefore your iPad solution updates in real time. You kind of expect that in a browser, but that's absolutely what you get. It's exactly the same methodology, and we'll be going through that today, where you make changes and it's instantly in the browser. One of the differences, I suppose, from maybe older web apps is that there's no need to refresh your browser. You no need to click the refresh button. It does it detects that there's been a change and will update all of your users straight away. One of the advantages of that, of course, is things like the charts or reports. You could have these reports or items of interest, let's say, on a big TV somewhere, and those things could be refreshing automatically. I've seen that at a few customer visits where they've had things like big TV in the reception room where they're sort of pointing out news for that organisation or museum or whatever it may be, and it's being driven by FileMaker itself, but it's automatically being refreshed. Similar in a sales organisation, you may have a TV that's showing how many calls each salesperson has made that day to sort of up productivity, that kind of thing. Anyway, so going on, what else have we got? Well, we got automated processes, of course. We've got the FileMaker scripts, calculations, conditional formatting, which is making things change color based on the value of itself or another field. So, just making a solution as automated as possible. And again, we'll be showing some of that today using some scripts and calculations. And of course, a lot more as well. So the thing we're going to be, or the use case we're going to be using today is La Rose Academy School. They're really that they're having a new year. They're looking at they're in their summer holiday and then they're looking at forward to the new year, new registrations, and it's an exciting time. But it causes, of course, a lot of headaches. There's lots of manual processes. They're using paper to fill out, getting parents to fill out registration forms to register their students for the new year. And it's becoming a bit of a problem. They're having to manually retype information and mistakes are happening, and they just want to find something to really help them out. And of course, they think about FileMaker. So what kind of things do they really want out of this new system? Well, they want their information and they want it where and when. They want it in the web. They want it wherever wherever the parents are. And they want to digitalize the registration form so they don't have to retype any information and remove those mistakes. But of course, they want to optimize for the web as much as possible. They want to automate as many processes as possible to make it as easy as they can for the parents to fill it out. So that's what we're going to go ahead and try and do. And let's see how we get on. So this is where we kind of want to get to. This is what we're going to be building today. I thought I'd show you almost the finished product, an enrollment form on the web with a submit button down the bottom and lots of other elements to it. So we're going to try and build this within the time we've got, which is good. We've got a good sort of 40 minutes or so. So let's get cracking and see how we get on. So I'm going to just take the browser away and I'm going to bring up FileMaker Pro on that. Okay, so we're just going to go File, New Solution, and bring up that dialog box. So we're just going to create a new custom app. We're going to just call it Website La Rose for the school, and we're just going to save that onto the desktop. Okay. So let's get cracking. So we've got a one page here. We've got a form. Let's design a new form and design it for WebDirect. So we're going to hit on New Layout here, or go up to the Layouts menu, New Layout Report. We're going to call it Registration. And strangely, and I'll tell you why in a minute, we're going to actually choose the iPad theme here, even though it's going to, we're targeting this for a browser. We're going to choose the iPad, and I'm just going to go through and select Form and Landscape here. And I'll explain why. So when you target a form for a certain platform here, what really happens, there's a few things that happen. Well, the main thing that happens is that you get a theme attached to this form. And I'll just bring up the themes menu so you can see what I mean. There's several new themes that we've got within FileMaker 14. These ones that are actually on the screen here. There were several older ones here, but these are the newest ones. And you can see that the Aspire and Aspire Touch and Basic. The basic ones are really for more advanced developers. That they give you absolutely no styling whatsoever, so you can start from scratch. You can see we've the sort of default one is Enlightened Touch, and you can see the difference between Enlightened and Enlightened Touch. If you can see the size differences there. So of course, Enlightened is for the desktop and maybe a report, while the Touch theme is for iPads. In this case, though, because it is slightly larger, it kind of suits the. I believe it's up to you, of course, but I believe it sort of suits the browser quite well. They're slightly larger, and of course you can create your own custom themes. You can start off with a theme and then create your own custom theme from that, modify it and make it your own. But it's good to start with one and then and do it that way. So we'll stay with Enlightened Touch to start off with. And let's just modify this, and I'll show you a few other tools. I'll just get rid of some of these floating toolbars, and I'll just extend this bar out a bit. So next to the, I'm over here on my mouse. As you can see over here, I've got a tool to show device dimensions. So it's a nice little guide here where we can choose lots of different platforms that we want to go for, and I've selected a desktop. And you can see this orange lines come in. So what I can do is if I go to the little line here on the right hand side of my layout, I can drag that out to fit the guide. And I can also, there's parts within a layout. So we've got a top part on the left-hand side. We've got this body part here and the bottom part. I'm going to delete those because I don't actually want the parts. The parts are extremely useful when you've got reports and for a certain look and feel. But we're going to build up our total look and feel ourselves. So I've dragged out the form to the right-hand side, and if I can just scroll down a little bit, I can see the bottom edge of that, and I'm just going to drag that down. By the way, I've sort of increased my resolution, or decreased it, should I say? I decreased my resolution so that the objects and everything on my screen are slightly larger for you, so you can see everything. So it wouldn't quite look this way on your monitor, but you wouldn't have to scroll down so much. It would fit the monitor, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so we've got a form now, and we've kind of we're satisfied that we're sort of building it for the client that we expect to come in, which is the browser. So let's start building it up, and then let's start putting just before we put any more complications on there, we'll get that straight up into WebDirect and view it through the browser. So let's just put some things on there so we can see what we're talking about. We've got some tools up here in the toolbar here, and one of them being a shape. So let's choose this rounded just let me explain quickly what I did there. By holding on some of these objects, when you've got a tiny little arrow, you can see that in the bottom right-hand side. That just means that there's some hidden tools under there. So I'm going to choose the rounded rectangle. It's highlighted, and then I just have to draw a box on there. A lot of FileMaker layout work is a lot of drawing boxes. So that's our first box. Okay, so that's a sort of a header. I don't really want it that big. And let me just go and grab, I've got a logo here that the school gave me, and I can literally just drag and drop that onto the layout. And I'm just going to make that slightly smaller. Top tip, if you hold the Alt key, if you can see, I can make the image look very horrible. It's not keeping the dimensions. If I hold the Alt key, as I drag it and make it smaller and larger, it keeps the dimension of the original file. Keep it looking nice, especially for a logo. People notice those kind of things. So we've got a nice logo in there. That's great. We've got a tool, text tool up the top here, and let's put some text on this layout. If I just select that again, I'm going to draw a little box there. The rows. Okay, so you can see we got, when we start typing, we have got suggested spellings as well within there that might help you. So we've got this title, but I want to make it slightly larger. So if we go to the right-hand side here, near the exit layout is a capital A, little a. I'll show the formatting bar for textual bits. You can also get to formatting bits within the little I there next to it, which is the inspector floating panel here. And within the appearance tab, we also have some text tools in there. So they're in two different places. But habit, this A is a slightly older feature, is a habit of bringing it up. Okay, so let's change the color here then. So let's make the title sort of a blue of the logo. Let's select one of those colors of the blue. Great. And let's make that slightly larger. So let's make it 36 points. Brilliant. That's great. Move that over there. And maybe a bit of information underneath. So 36. Maybe a telephone number. And an email, let's say. Okay, let's make this slightly smaller, this font. But again, I'm going to select a sort of blue color for it underneath. In fact, let's select the same color as the logo. Okay, fantastic. As you can see, when I'm dragging these objects along, you can see that slightly blue line to the left-hand side there. We get some guidance tools as we're dragging objects around, which just really help us. We don't have to sort of, you can view a ruler within a layout and sort of go to a certain point in the ruler there, and lots of other sort of helping, some tools to help you design. But these guides are really great, actually. They do make lining things up very, very, very fast. So what other little tools have we got in here? Well, what would be quite nice maybe is to make this text centered. Yeah, and that looks great. Okay, so we've got to start. It's obviously not very functional, but we've got to start. We've got a little look and feel, and we've got a layout. So let's save this layout, and then let's upload this to our server, and therefore let's have a look at it on WebDirect. So before we do that, we need to look at the security. So File Manage Security. And have a look into the security. So what have we got? Well, we've got accounts and we've got account names. So we've got named accounts, and as default, when you start off a file, you have admin with no username admin, no password. That has full access. Have a privilege that full access that has full access to the file, can go into layout mode and everything else. We've got a guest account which is not active but just has read only. So just sort of for suggestion purposes. We've then got privilege sets. So we've got 3 here that you could use: full access data only, and read only. You can duplicate these, start afresh. Maybe if I go in there and say, admin staff, can go in here and you can create custom privileges. You can select any of the tables, any of the bits of information you've got in here, and whether they can view them, edit them, yes, no, or go into the limited, where you can actually use a calculation to say, if it's a certain username, then they can. If it's not, they can't. So you can go to quite a very low level, even to the record level. So in this case, individual registration records, who can view them, cannot. To the layout, so forms, who can view the forms, who cannot. The drop downs, the scripts, who can run them or not. Which technologies they're allowed to use. So in this case, WebDirect. FMAP is FileMaker itself. Lots of other technologies, including connections to other databases and web technologies, even to the level where you can allow them to print or not or export data when they change their password. So a lot of things in here. We'll cancel out of that. The one I want to quickly look at is just the WebDirect, and I want to open up access via FileMaker network. So I want to go into this file via FileMaker Pro or FileMaker Go to edit it and to view it. And also I want to open up WebDirect to the admin account, or to the privilege set, full access, I should say. And I want that as well. So that's 2 settings that I can change. Of course, you wouldn't do this in when you go live. You would lock that down a lot more. You would open up. We wouldn't open up to a full access account, but just for demonstration purposes to show you how to do it. Okay, so having looked at the security and opened up WebDirect, I can now share that and upload that to the FileMaker server. So it's telling me that, again, a little security catch-all. It's saying that the admin hasn't got a password. I'm going to ignore it, but you shouldn't. And I'm going to close that file and select my local server. These favorite hosts are hosts that are up there that I have personally out in partners' data centers. But here's my local WebDirect server, and I can upload that to my server and then open that up. So I've got a tick here saying open with FileMaker Pro, so I don't have to go and find it again. It opens up directly into FileMaker Pro again. So it doesn't look any different, but this file now is not here. This one that we've saved onto our desktop, this is no longer the file that we're accessing here. The reason I know that is that it's in brackets, it's got Vic Falls, which is the name of my server. And so therefore, we're live on the server now. Okay, so to access the WebDirect solution, I'm going to bring up my WebDirect, my browser, Chrome. Just shrink that a little bit. So I'm bringing it over to the right-hand side. And in this case, I'm on my own server. But what you would do is put the host name of the machine, so www.domainname.com, FMI /webd for WebDirect, and that would bring up this control panel. You can link directly into a file as well by putting the name of the file there, and that's the way we do it. I'm using localhost because I'm on my own machine here. I'm just going direct to my server. Yeah, so a simple web link that you can email to people and hide behind a hyperlink, of course, when you're sending it out to the parents in this case. Okay, so let's have a look at, let's just refresh this page, and I can see my file there, so website LaRose. So let's go into that, well, before I go into that file, you can see that I've got a few ones I made earlier that we're going to go into, and I've got a nice custom icon on there, which is really quite nice. So let's just quickly show you how to do that. So everything you do, just to make this point very clear, in the browser and in FileMaker Go itself, you can't do any developing. You can't change this file. Everything that you want to change that you're developing is within FileMaker Pro on the desktop. So just to make that absolutely clear. So to change the icon, it's just up to File and File Option. And on the top, in one of the tabs, there is the icon. There's plenty of icons here to choose from that we've just given to you, but you can choose the custom one and go in and choose a image that you've already got. Okay, and then if I just go into my web browser again and do a refresh, you can see that it's changed the icon. So you can have some nice little custom icons to go with your file that show up in all of the clients on the iPads and on the desktop and in WebDirect. Okay, so there we go. Without having to learn any web technology, you haven't had to do CSS, PHP, you haven't had to learn any of those technologies or mess around with a web server and get it all working. You've got a form, a logo in this case, and some writing, but you can see how fast you can get a web page up and running. So not terribly impressed at the moment, but I just wanted to show you that quickly as we go forward. So let's just minimize that again. So I'm back in FileMaker Pro, and let's have a look at what we want to do first. Well, okay, so it's a registration, and we want to do that. We want to collect some information about the students, of course. So let's do that first. So edit layout again, and I'm going to use this great new tool called the Field Picker. I've selected it from the layout bit here. And that allows me to create fields, to create objects where I can collect some of that information. So I'm going to select this new field button down the bottom here, and student ID. I'll take my caps off. Student ID. Okay, so first off, every record, of course, in a database, and it's good practice to have a unique identifier, and in this case, no different. So student ID in here, we could call it registration ID actually, to not make it too confusing. But and we could make it a number or text. It doesn't matter in this case so much. But a right click on this field once you've created it, you can go into the field options, and you can select some of these auto enter information. So for instance, if it was a date field, I could collect the day that the record was created or modified. Or in this case, I could bring up a serial number here to create a unique identifier, which is great. That's absolutely fine. There's another way of doing it at the moment, and that is to make it a calculation, to make it a calculated value. And one of the new calculated values is get UUID. So this is just a different way of doing it, and instead of a serial number that just goes from 1 and increments by 1 every time, a unique identifier it's a very, very large number, so large in fact, or so it's random, a random very large number that if you're using FileMaker Go, you're out and you're disconnected from the server when you're creating these records. It's so large that even if 100 of you create 100 records every day, there's no way that you're going to create the same unique number. So it's up to you. There's two ways of creating a unique number in this case. I'm just going to create a serial number as this WebDirect system is all connected to the server, so I don't see any issues there. Okay, so that's great. What else do we need to do? Well, let's say name, age, address, city and postcode. Okay. And of course, for the age, I think it would be applicable to have a number there. And the other thing I wanted was a birth date. And that will be textual, or a date in this case, of course. Sorry. Okay, so we've got some fields that we want to put on the form. So let's look at doing that. So again, I'm gonna create a little background like I did for the title for them to sit on. Another rounded rectangle. And I'm going to go up there and select another one. Just drag that out of the way so I can make sure that they're all aligned. So if I drag that out, I should get yeah, there you go, a little guiding line again. And if I go to the left-hand side, I should get the same again. There you go, brilliant. Okay, so let's bring some of these on. So let's look at how to do that. Well, I could just select them all, Shift select, and select them all. I could drag them on one by one, of course. But we've got a lovely little drag options down the bottom here, which will help me place them. So I can have the fields going on top of each other. I'll just quickly show you, see what I mean? On top of each other. I can have them, if I just undo that, I can have them next to each other. If I select this line here, great. And I can have the labels either no labels at all, labels on the top, labels to the left, or within them, placeholder text. And you get these nice little tooltips come up. So if you forget, you can always just hover over your mouse over them and you'll get a reminder. So I'm going to have name, age, maybe the birth date next to each other. So I want them going next to each other, and I want the labels at the top. So let's see how we do that. There you go, great. So nice and fast. I might just select these objects and just drag them over a little bit and make the name slightly larger, just in case someone's got an extremely long name. Okay, fantastic. Bit of formatting there. And let's put the other address information, exactly the same formatting, but just underneath. Fantastic. And again, I'm just going to give the address a bit more room. Great. Well, let's see how that looks. So we're just going to exit the layout there and save that. And then I'll just bring up the browser again, and instantly you can see I can add records into here and start submitting them straight away. So you can see I'll add them through the browser. Here's the name, and we've got them coming through the server back to FileMaker Pro, so all connected and the same the other way. So we can see it's a connected system through both of them. Okay, great. So we've got a start of a web form. What else do we want? What else would be handy here? Well, one of the sort of the workflows and things that often don't happen when you have a paper form is having sort of the required documents that you need with this process. So in this case, we need proof of age and proof of address. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to add a bit more formatting to this as well. So we're just going to go into layout mode again. I'm going to bring this down a bit to give myself some room for the required information. And whoops, I'll just bring that up a bit to give me some room. So maybe this one, just a bit of a title so people know what they're doing. Student details. Fantastic. Make that a bit larger. And while I'm there, I'm just going to format that. So I haven't talked about it much, but I'm going to go into the styles bit. So this is where we have, within a theme, you have a number of styles, a style for every object. And there's some text styling here that I can use, which is fantastic. And there's a nice blue one, so that's great. So the great thing about this is maybe that blue isn't exactly the right color at some stage. If I used all of my sort of titles for these parts and use this this style up here, if I changed the look feel of that style and saved it into that style, it would change throughout that page and then eventually throughout the whole entire system. So well worth looking into that. Similar when you've got a Pages document or a Word document where you've got header 1. If you've ever done that styling, you change header 1, and as long as you've used header 1 for all the headers, you've changed the look and feel of header 1, and it changes throughout that document without you having to spend half an hour doing it yourself. So similar idea and a real time saver if you remember to do it to start off with, which we do recommend, especially for WebDirect. These styles allow the system to be as small as possible. The sort of information that's coming down to the browser, if you use styles and you're using several different styles, it's only one bit of information coming down rather than potentially 10 or 20. So worth using. Okay, so we've got that. That's great. Let's go and build up a quick another little sort of holder. Fantastic. And for this one, I'm just going to copy and paste that object on, reuse that, and just change that to required documents. Fantastic. Okay, so of course we want to have some fields to collect this information. So we need to create a couple of new fields for these. So first off, proof of age and proof of address. Great, both being text, so that's fine. We're going to have them on top of each other with the label at the top, which is great. So as we drag them on, they should already be formatted for us. Fantastic. Okay, so what would be nice, instead of having somebody, if I just go into browse mode, instead of someone just okay, proof of age might be a passport, instead of someone typing into here and potentially misspelling them, getting it wrong, I don't know, putting a space at the beginning, lots of other errors that people do. I potentially might want to do a sort of a report on this. What do people bring? What was the proof? Maybe it's something that I need to submit to the council. I don't know. It's some kind of business intelligence that I need to report on. When it's vital that we get the right information into a system, it's great to provide some kind of limited entry. So if we could do some kind of checkbox here, it would really help our users get the job done faster, but also help with the reliability, the value of that data that's going in. So to do that, I'm going to bring up the inspector panel again. I'm going to go to the data tab, and it's telling us what this field is and where it is. But down here we've got the control type. So at the moment, and default is always an edit box. Well, we're just going to change that to be a checkbox set, which is great. I'm going to change it to be a check, not an X, and values from where. So what are the values? Well, we've got to go and use this pencil here to create a new one. And this one would be proof of age. We can grab we can grab values from other fields, whether in this custom app or another one. But in this case, we're just going to free type them in there. So right, what have we got? A few. I could go on, but let's call it just 3 there. Okay, so we've got the 3 sort of proofs of age that we want. While we're here, why don't we do another new one, which is the proof of address. So utility bill, rental contract maybe. What else have we got? Council letter, whatever it may be. So some kind of proof of address, so whatever the school requires. So okay, so we've got 2 here, so let's okay that. And when you use a checkbox or any kind of other drop downs, you choose which value list you want. Once you created these value lists, you can use them throughout your system. So you only have to create them once and you can use them in lots of different places. So there's my proof of age checkbox set, and the proof of address, exactly the same thing, checkbox set, values from proof of address this time. I want to make them a tick box. I'll just drag that out to reformat, and you can see how it automatically reformats as I drag the field around. Okay, brilliant. Let's see how that looks. So exit that layout and save it. Okay, looks pretty good there. few checkboxes there. If we go back to our browser here, we can see exactly the same thing. So we can get some of that going on. So I did this almost on purpose. I could see that I had entered a bit of information, but I was still editing the record on FileMaker Pro. We can see that we got an error on the browser that's saying that another user is modifying this record. This is a good thing. It's not really an error. It's just to make sure that only one person at a time can edit a record. You wouldn't want 3 people editing a record. You just get nonsense. So FileMaker copes with that and does it all for you, so that you only get the records that the data that you want. Okay. So as you can see, we've got the form now. We've got the logo and the bit of text at the top. We've got a nice little checkbox set to make that easier, that process a little bit easier. We're grabbing some details from the student. So this is a good time, I think, to quickly let's just go back to the keynote and just make sure that I'm on the right track. So what we first did is we just wanted it within the web, basically, information where we want it. Well, I think we've done that. We quickly just grabbed the file and we stuck it in there, and we made that available very, very quickly through a browser. We're sort of halfway there with digitalizing the registration forms. We're making a good stab at that. We're getting them digitalized and they're coming in to our server directly from the web. But I think this is a good stage just to go back and sort of go to one I made earlier, if you like. So if I go back to the WebDirect sort of homepage, I've got a student website part 2. So I've just gone on a bit. I've just spent another sort of 20 minutes or so going through this and making some nice little formatting changes here. I've got this 1, 2, 3 going on. It looks really nice, but actually I tried to go into layout mode here. That's not going to help me, is it? Not in the browser. I can't do that. Let's show you how I did that. So I'm just going to close this file down and just go File, Open, and then go to my host file and select that student website 2. There you go. So that's the same file as we're on. So if I just go into layout mode, let me shrink that window a bit. If I go into layout mode there, you can show you how it's done. So it's just a number, and then it's a blue circle and a white circle. Dead easy, but very effective actually. Looks really nice. So yep, so I've added some formatting. I've added some nice little a few more fields here with a if I go to browse mode to show you, with a calendar picker, some drop downs here to limit entry but also to speed it up. Yeah, a few other things here. What have we got? We got the parent guardian information, parent 1, parent 2, with some information in there, whether they're interested in joining the PTA and so on. So yeah, so it's smart enough. It's looking pretty good now. But let's see what else we can do, how we can make it even better. Well, one of the things that people expect, or I certainly expect on a form, is help to get the data in there. You as the school want the data to be correct and everything in there to be sort of valid, but you also want to make it as easy as possible for the person entering the form. So there's two bits to that. So let's have a look at how to do that. So one is just a sort of a bit of a visual thing. So what would be nice is to have some visual aids when the data isn't being put in correctly or is not there at all and is a required field. So let's have a look at how we would do that. And it comes in 2 parts. So edit the layout here. And I'm just going to use the text tool again to bring up an asterisk. So there you go, just an asterisk there. And maybe I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. That's better. Okay. So let's say this enrollment grade is a required field. So how do we get that to highlight when it's not empty? Or sorry, when it is empty. So first off, let's right click on that object, and you can do this to any object, and choose conditional formatting. So we're going to add a conditional format, and we're going to do a formula. So what we're going to do is just to go into the calculation engine and choose, we've got fields on the left-hand side here, and we've got the functions on the right with some operators. So where the student age is greater than a date, do something. So it's a calculation very similar to a spreadsheet, if you like. So let's go in here. So what do we want? So when enrollment date, I might do a search for that. There you go. When enrollment date, double click to bring it over, is empty. I want it to go red. So before, let's just get rid of that one before we go in there. One of the calculations is empty. I click on, double click on that, we can see it brings it over nicely and sort of gives you some help of what to do. So is empty, the field. So if it is empty, so if it returns a 1, so that's what we want, is okay. So if it's empty, make the color red. Let's see how that looks. So okay, into browse mode. If we just go and delete a value out there, it's not coming up. Let's have another look on that. I did enrollment date, my fault. There you go. Chose the wrong field. That wouldn't help, would it? Enrollment grade. Okay, and okay. There you go, that's better. Okay, so when we've got a bit of data in here, it isn't red anymore. When we just remove that data out of there, it goes red. So kind of what you'd expect on a web form, right? What would be nicer actually though is if that doesn't even appear, or maybe maybe or maybe not, but maybe it would be nice that this only really appears when there's an issue. So we've got another feature in FileMaker where we can hide objects based on a calculation. So let's go and see how you do that. Well, this is it's in a slightly different place. It's within the inspector and within the behavior part, and it's hide object when. So slightly different formula, but if we click on the pencil, it's actually a not is empty, but the same field obviously. So it's when is empty not or not is empty when it's not empty. So when it's not empty, we're gonna remove it. Let's find it again. Choose the right one this time. Okay, so let's see how that looks. So we can see we've got some helpful little icons underneath it. The eye being hidden, the diamond shape being conditional formatting, just a visual aid when you're in layout mode to see what's there. Okay, so there you go. So we've got data in it. The asterisk disappeared. Obviously it's not red because it's not there, but when it's empty, we're getting an asterisk and it's coloring it red as well. Of course, in this case, you could probably just make the asterisk red. You wouldn't need to do the conditional formatting. But just to show you both ways of having some kind of user interaction based on the data that they're filling out. Okay, so let's go and the other part to this is, of course, is maybe to make sure that this data is correct when you're submitting. So let's go and have a look at that, how that happens. So what we might want to do is put a nice big submit button down the bottom here, and have it check that the fields are correct. So let's go into layout mode and see that working. In fact, just before I do that, I'm just going to go into the browser and just, as you can see here, just to prove it's also working within the browser. Okay, let's go and do that button. So into layout mode, I'm going to choose the button tool, which is up at the top here. Again, a single click and then draw a box. Button setup dialog box comes up. You can give this a label, so submit. You can just have the text, or you can have text and an icon, maybe. Whatever's relevant to a submission. You don't have to have one at all. I'm struggling to find one that's really relevant here, but yeah, maybe that's a form. You want to say that's a submit form. Yeah, you can make the icon slightly bigger. Totally up to you, and you can color these things as well in the inspector windows we've been doing with other objects, which maybe I'll do actually. If I go into the inspector window, let's go into the style, and you can see that it's a slightly smaller amount of styles. You can see I could go in here and make that a color. I could make it totally a custom color. I can change the colors of these things as I wish. But like I say, it's really good. It's recommended to use a style if you can. Okay, well that looks fine. So that's half of it. Let's go into browse mode just to prove a point that a button, I'm double clicking on this button and nothing's happened. So you've got to attach that to a script. It's got to run something, okay? So to do that, I'm going to go up to the scripts menu and into the scripts workspace. So this is where the automation happens. This is where things all come together, hopefully. So let's go and add a new script. I'm going to call it submit registration, maybe. And what are we going to have in here? Well, you can have some logic in here. So, of course, logic's being not always, but often being built around if statements. So, if some kind of state, do this, else do something else. So it's built it in for us. We've just typed in if, and it's I've clicked enter, and it's built in the end if for us. So that's nice. So we don't have to remember to put it in. So let's say. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to check that a field is not empty, right? So let's say the registration proof of age. Let's pick on that one. So if the proof of age is empty, let's do something. Well, what can we do? Well, we could show a dialog box, right? We could highlight it to the user. So let's maybe show the dialog box that just says, please document. So just a little message that will come up, which is great, with an OK button with it. So that sounds fine. And if that is the case, then we'll just exit the script. We'll just come out of there. Else, maybe we sort of show another custom dialog box. So maybe all the checks are correct. Maybe we'll go through here and do some more checking. But we could show a custom dialog box that just says, thanks for enrolling your child for 2000. I suppose it would be 16 now, right? Okay. So let's look through the logic here. So if a certain fields, and we can group these together, we could have if is empty, a field, or another field, or another field, or another field, and so on. Or you could have them within a case statement. So that's another way of doing it. You would go through another sort of nested if statement. So you go through and check all of the fields that you need to check, and otherwise show a dialog box that says, please choose, please select whatever's wrong. And obviously the highlighting would also happen as well. We'd have that visual clue, but you'd have a direct sort of dialog box that would actually stop you from coming into this. Or we could go through and show a dialog box that says thanks for enrolling, and we're going to actually use a exit application at this point that can go through, and then it would close that window. And I'll talk a bit more about how that works and what behavior we want within WebDirect. But just for this stage, that looks fine. So let's save that. And in our layout, we're just going to double click on our button and choose the action for it, which is the perform script. And it's the one that we've just selected. So that's submit registration. Okay. So let's have a go on WebDirect, and let's just check the buttons there. So the button's there, and I'm just going to create a new record. So imagine I'm come in and I've come in and I'm selecting a new one, but I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to ignore the proof of age and then try and hit the submit button. So great. So we captured a please select a proof of age document, or whatever message you want to put up there. We've got an OK button. And if we did the same thing as we did for the enrollment grade, we could have a nice little asterisk here that would highlight being read, and then you would have to select one of these objects. If we go and submit, okay, everything's all great. We've gone through our error checking. Thanks for enrolling your child, and click OK, and it's exit that application. I'll come on to what I actually want to happen is a slight modification. If I click on this link, you can see that I'm going into the same file. So this is the web link, I'm going into the same file, which is student website part 2. What I'm doing is doing a home URL before that bit that tells me where I want to go when I exit this application. In this case, if I just go ahead and do that again, so if I do a new record, I select a proof of age so that I should be all okay. Clicked OK. Thanks for enrolling. And I go to a return URL. So that could be the home page of the website. Who knows? Maybe if they select I want to join the PTA, maybe it goes to the PTA part of the school website. But it's a nice little technique there where by putting in this home URL part, which is documented. It's we've got that in white papers around designing for WebDirect. It's all documented quite nicely, but that's how you do it. It's just a question mark with the URL link in there that you want to send it back to. Okay, so that's a nice little functionality that when we exit the application. Great. So let's look at a few other things that we want to do. Let's look at another thing to do. So okay, so I'm in this file and that's great, but you wouldn't send this out to the parents yet. The main reason is that the toolbar at the top here is visible, and as you can see, I'm in the browser, but I can see everyone else's registrations. I can see everyone else's personal details. That's not good, right? We don't want that. So let's see how we can or at least in part minimize this. I'm not sure if I can go through the whole thing, but we can certainly remove this toolbar, and let's see how we do that. So back to FileMaker Pro, and for this, again, we're going to go into the scripts and go into the script workspace. And we're going to open up, we're going to choose a new file. I'm going to call it opening file. So this is going to run. We're going to set this to run when the file is first opened. When I say file, when the user first goes into your custom app, into your web app in this case. So let's have a look. So what we want is whenever a user, doesn't matter where they are, but if they're using a browser, they're going to go to a certain layout, they're going to create a new record so that they don't see anyone else's, and they're going to hide the toolbars, and then they can submit their registration and it exits the application. Nice and simple, and they're very much locked down. So let's see how we would do this. So first, it's another if statement. In this case, it's going to be, we're going to use a calculation or a function, sorry, which is going to get the system platform. There you go. As you can see here, as you're going down these get, especially these get functions, they're brilliant. They're very, very useful. You can get user, you know, as you can see here, lots of different information you can get from the user in this case, their IP address even, and lots of other things. But get system platform returns a number representing the current platform, and I know the number representing WebDirect is 4. So if the system platform is 4, if it's WebDirect, we're going to make a user go to a layout, go to a form, and that form is going to be the one that we've just built, the website one. Yep, just double check that. There it is, written there on the layout. Go to layout website. We're going to show hide the menu bar. Select it to hide. Great. And show hide the toolbar. So we're just going to lock everything we can, so all they can see is the form. And lastly, we're going to select we're going to create a new record. So new record. Okay, so let's just go through this logic again. So if it doesn't matter who they are, what permissions they've got, it doesn't matter. If they are using WebDirect, any user or any web browser comes to the system, if they're using WebDirect, they will go to this layout. It will hide it will hide the toolbar and the menu bar, and it will create a new record. Okay, nice and simple. There's lots of other things you can do, but this is a really good example. You know, maybe we could capture an else in there. Sorry, not there. Maybe we could capture an else exit script. Maybe it seems a bit harsh on opening, but we could do else. You know, go here, go there, go to a different layout, check that they're an admin. Lots of other things we do. But let's keep it simple at the moment. So the opening file. Okay, let's save that. and I'll show you how to attach that. So it's not on a button this time, of course, it's within the actual whole file. So it's File, File Options, the one we were in before. We would have to lock this file down a bit more. We would probably uncheck this logging in as admin, or we definitely would do that. Um, but we would go into the script triggers, and on window first open is one of the script triggers in there. So let me explain what a script trigger is. A script trigger is a way of triggering scripts, obviously, but it can be done based on the window, so the file or the window. So window being the very first layout it hits. Or within a field, so coming in and out of an object or a field. So lots of different ways of triggering a script or logic or automation. But this is one of the ways where you can do, on the very first window, per user this is, of course, run a script. So what would it be? Well, we want that opening file script that we just created, and OK on that. So let's test that out. Let's go here and refresh this link. So you can see the toolbar's disappeared and we're in a new record. It's an empty record. So I can't go back and forward. I can hit the back button, but that's just not going to take me anywhere. And it's pretty much locking it down. So that's really great. And when I select my information, of course, same as we did before, and submit that, I go back to just a normal web page if I so wish. So, okay, so let's just quickly look at what we've done there. I think we've hit all of the points that were required of us from the school. We've got the information up on the web. We've digitalized a form, and we've optimized it for the web. We've locked it down using security. Oh, I've told you how you can do that. We went through and we made sure that parents can only see their own record. They can submit it. They're getting some help to fill out the form, but also being sort of led down a certain, minimize how much bad data they can put in with drop downs and checkboxes and so on. So we've used quite a few parts of the platform here to make this all come together. The last thing I just wanted to quickly highlight is that, okay, great, we've got this form and that's brilliant, but where's this data being held, And hopefully it makes sense to you, but just in case it doesn't, it's being held in this file. It's within FileMaker. We can go and have a look at it. It is just all in there. This is within FileMaker Pro, obviously, but all of the registration details are all, I've just gone to table view just to view it. But within here, you could do, you could create another layout. For example, you could go and create a new layout. Let's go to layout mode, and you could do a report, a new layout report. So you could choose to do a report based on a printer. You go through the report. You can look in many places on how to do that. Very quick and easy to write a summary report, based on certain data. What else could you do? The data's within there, so you can do a lot with it. Let's have another look. If we go and maybe just within here, let's choose sorting by city, and we could actually just within here we could go to chart by the student city, and we just change the labels so we can see the labels. We can do a very quick chart and see where most of the students are coming from. Maybe that's something we need to submit to the council, and which places are our students coming from. Maybe this would be probably within the UK. This would be more distance from school, maybe something like that, the area that they're the catchment area, if you like. But the data's in there. You've got a web form, but the data is within FileMaker, and within using your FileMaker skills, you can do now what you want with that data, which is a web form, of course, is the start of a process. Obviously, this data would probably be feeding into the student management system. Right. Okay. So let's just talk quickly about what you need to set this all up. You need server, so you need a dedicated machine. Is our recommendation to run FileMaker server. Have a look on our tech specs for the most up-to-date information. This is at the moment, but please check on the tech specs for the latest operating systems that we require. But at the moment, it's Windows Server 2008 and Windows 2012, and on the Mac, it's OS X 10.8, 9, and 10. So lots of different things to have this go out to the web. Of course, you need network ports available. Port 80 is really the only one you need for WebDirect. But please have a look on our knowledge base. It's within our. If you go to our support knowledge base, you can search for an article number 12120 or ports. We'll probably bring it up as well, and have a look at the ports available. Like I say, really, 80 is the one you'll really need. The other thing, of course, being on the web is that we really do recommend that you grab a SSL certificate for security. So this is just a way for a third-party company to certify that the server is the server that it's supposed to be, and to give you a certification so that you can turn on encryption. So when a browser comes to this site, comes to the WebDirect registration page, the information that's been put into that is encrypted between that browser and the server, especially when you're talking about student information or anyone's information. It's really important that you get your encryption sorted out. Very easy to do with the FileMaker side. It's just a checkbox, but you have to go through and get that certificate from a third-party body. Nothing different there from any other web server, but I thought I'd call that out. Yes, and obviously you need access to the internet. Obviously you need a FileMaker a custom app. A static IP address is recommended, but not strictly needed. But it's always useful if parents are typing in school.edu, it's always comes to the right place. And you need to get some concurrent licensing. So if that's something you need to know about now, please you can call our team and have a chat about that. But the WebDirect and FileMaker Go comes into our concurrent licensing scheme, which is pretty good because you don't have to pay per client. Of course, on the web you don't know you may have 500 students, 500 parents coming onto this, but they're only going to come on in 5 or 10s at any one time. So just to quickly go over that a bit more detail. So you've got your server up the top there, and FileMaker Pro and Pro Advanced come under a different licensing scheme, but you're paying for them and the server. But FileMaker Go and WebDirect, the free clients, the ones that are free to download or use, would come into the server under a concurrency licensing scheme in packs of 5. Okay. So the other thing to point out is that yes, one of the limits is that the server for WebDirect is tested and certified to 100 concurrent connections. So 100 sounds quite small, but when you think about it's actually at one time, there's not many business processes that over 100 people are doing something at the same time. But that's something to definitely keep in mind. So I hope that helped. Just to sort of go over what we did before we go to maybe some questions, is we looked at quickly getting a layout, a custom app into a browser. So we opened up a new file, we uploaded that to the server, put a logo on and just had a look and made sure that worked. We put some fields on and just made sure we had some data interaction between the browser and FileMaker Pro through the server. We then started going forward a bit more and putting drop downs, checkboxes, and putting some nice little conditional formatting and hiding calculations so that we could check, give the user some feedback and also make sure that they're entering the right data. And then we put some even nicer stuff in there where we were having a submit button that was checking the right data was put in there. And also when we exit the application, we were going to another URL. We were going to a static homepage somewhere. We also put a nice opening script in there that was checking what platform we're on and creating a new record and making sure that they couldn't see anyone else's data. Okay. So I'm looking at Mike with a question in my face, but I think from his, this has stumped you all, and there's no questions.
We were about to say there's no questions, and we've just got one. Is the generated web page responsive?
That's a great question, and the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, responsive in yes, depending on how you. I'm glad Mike was here today. When I was hearing the word responsive, I was like, it's absolutely responsive. Look, I was developing live and it was responding. But if you mean, does it respond automatically to an iPhone, an iPad? The answer is sort of yes, sort of no. Similar to how you would design for any other layout, we sort of designed a layout for a larger screen, but there are some tools in there that would shrink some of these objects and make them grow, but they're not fully responsive. Responsive means, for those of you who don't know, is that potentially, say you have 4 buttons on a page that do different things, and as you drag that window smaller, maybe they combine into 2 buttons that do separate things. But we don't have that kind of that way of, well, we don't have that way of doing it out of the box. I mean, there are ways of doing it. You can check when a window is being resized and then through a script trigger, and then potentially make a user go to another layout. I wouldn't call it truly responsive, but I suppose you could code for it. So it's a sort of yes, sort of no answer. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Kieran. Another question. No, no more questions. Just people saying thank you for the webinar, which is
Okay.
nice. Thank you very
Thank you, guys.
much. Thank you very much to everyone for attending today. Our next webinar will be next Friday at 12 o'clock, so feel free to attend that. Until then, thank you very much for attending. Have a great afternoon, an excellent weekend, and goodbye.